Hey, you guys, welcome to Soul and Soil Podcast, and we are rolling with Latanya. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Don't cuss me out in the comments. I know it's been a little bit, but can y'all not sense the spiritual warfare in the air? This is like one of the only times in my life where I genuinely, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way. This is the only time I know that I'm not the only one going through shit. And there's a sense of comfort in it, but it's also I realize the comfort is that I know that everywhere I go, I got to practice grace with people because you're not the only one going through a batch, right? And I feel like collective we're going through spiritual warfare, and the the reason why I came to this um, conclusion, right, is because if you've not seen the number of spiritual guides that have appeared, and this could be a beautiful thing, it could be a blessing, it could be a curse, we don't know. Spiritual leaders, people are awakening, people are finally questioning why they believe the things that they believe. Is it really something that they truly believe, or is it something that has been passed down out of ignorance? Um, and some things that genuinely, so Latanya has collectively always, I have been feeling like we are in the Twilight Zone. And I don't know if anybody's ever watched that show. Let's get into that real quick and then we're going to get into the topics. Okay. So Twilight Zone is a old TV show. It's a TV series, not a movie. And each episode, it would be following this character or these characters. And in a sense, they would be in the Twilight Zone, meaning the shit that they're going through genuinely I felt like was spiritual lessons only meant for them, meaning like there was one episode where the whole world basically is gone and there's one man left on earth, and like if you see how he kind of responded at the beginning of it versus how he kind of like transitioned to his way of thinking and perspective, or even how he was just experiencing his experience, he was fucked up. First, he was happy. He had all the books, he had all the amenities. There was no one to stop him from doing what he wanted to do. And then eventually he had his spiritual awakening, like, fuck, right? So I feel like we're living in the Twilight Zone because I feel like every single day I wake up and I remember there was a time where it was external lessons or just like life lessons, because I like to call or consider myself a student of life. Like I genuinely learn more about experience in life versus sitting in a room being taught or force fed lessons or perspectives, right? So in this Twilight Zone that I've been feeling like this for the last few years, especially during COVID, to where I realized that I don't really, and I don't know how many other people feel like this, I don't give a fuck about the things that are being pushed to give a fuck about. I'm gonna be honest. Like it genuinely, I feel like it's energetically pulling at me now that I am trying so hard to stay away from bullshit that I know is just that, right? And so let's get into it. I genuinely realize that we're all under not only just spiritual warfare, I feel like we're under a spiritual attack, but in a sense, it can be a blessing for some. It can be hell for a lot of others, depending on how open you genuinely are to receiving the lessons and receiving what comes up, or if you're somebody that's wanting to suppress the things that come up because that no longer works in the earth that we're living in. I genuinely feel like the earth is purging in its own way, and naturally we're connected to the earth. We are human beings. Okay. I just feel like we sense it just like animals do. I feel like we always love to call out what everybody else experiences instead of just sitting and resonating with our own. And people love to say, oh, the animals. Have you seen the animals? Okay, motherfucker. But if you said with yourself, you would feel exactly what the animals are feeling too. Let's talk about it. So, no. This came about because I kind of felt like, especially going into this year, it's been like no matter what I do, it's like topsy turvy. I don't know if there's a lot of cartoon shows that used to do where it's like the world would be in reverse, and it'd be like only a few characters would be like aware of the whole shift in the universe, but the collective living in that, or the characters living in that universe, right? They're not aware, but only the main characters are aware of the changes and the transitions and things like that. And I feel like that's kind of what we're all spiritually going through right now. The people who are wanting to be open to it, they're very much aware of what is going on and they see it firsthand. They've been seeing it firsthand. This is not one of those, oh, my awakening just happened this year when I noticed that Trump was president. No, babe. You've been awakening for a few years. You've been awakened almost your whole life. There's a few of y'all been awakened your whole life. You've been seeing the bullshit. You've been seeing the inconsistencies and things. And all I know is I remember at the beginning of September, I already knew that there was going to be some shifts happening because, babe, I know after my birthday, after that major shift for my own solar return shift, that's always a motherfucker on its own, right? So I had to go through that, but I always know that once I finally go, I can breathe again. Is I just can't thinking about the way you're holding me. Okay, so I literally will like I can breathe again. Next thing you know, I know something's coming. I'm like, you breathing a little too easy, honey. Something spiritually, like you were literally be having the season of rest because something is coming. And when you're someone that is genuinely tapped into your spiritual, I would say, yeah, your you have an internal connection with yourself. You're aware of stuff and you're aware of the cycles, and you then got your ass whipped a few times. So now you kind of like you're equipped, right? You're like, oh shit, this feels like a season of rest. I'm genuinely going to take it because I know what happens after this season. So all I know is as I finally start to feel like I'm progressing in some parts of my life, I start to reach or feel adversity, right? Which is a given. I know it's coming, right? But I noticed this adversity was a little different. I realized this adversity wasn't just affecting me. I realized it's collectively affecting other people as well. So there's something deeper to this. And I feel like if I'm so tapped in and worried about pushing my own agenda and my own yeah, purpose and things like that, I'm going to miss out on a lesson that we're all genuinely supposed to be learning right now. And I had seen a few posts, which I was trying to genuinely stay the fuck off social media because I don't want it to warp my opinion. But sometimes there's people like, there was an episode of Leo Skeppy. If y'all haven't checked his ass out, go check his ass out. He has a podcast that he streams on YouTube. At least I'm a visual girly, so I'm always catching everything visually. But he was literally talking about living in the era of gaslight. You literally get online, you have your own thoughts and opinions about things like that you have formed. You have collectively went through an experience that has cultivated the way you see something, right? And then you'll get online and you'll see 16 things contradicting the facts. Like these are facts that you had used to draw your conclusion, right? And now you have 16,000 things being thrown at you to warp your perception of what you are seeing, what you are experiencing, and what you know for sure. You see how tied my people's in? Okay, anyways, let me stop playing with y'all. I'm just saying, when he said that, I was like, literally, when I moved to Orlando, the first thing I thought is this is like, I was happy to move here because I was so tapped into the illusion that was being projected here. Then when you live here, once you live here for 7 fucking years, you start to have that illusion peeled back. And the things that used to make the city don't make the city anymore. And the people that used to make the city, you find out who they genuinely are. And some of them ain't people, some of them is, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, you just realize that you're dealing with a lot of, like when I first moved here, I was not as tapped into myself or into my own spirituality until I was being exposed, honey. And your exposure, honestly, it will depict based off of like what level of frequency you're on. So like when I first moved here, I was depressed. I was unsure of myself. I was suicidal. Like I had all the things. I was always in fear. I was always in a lack mindset. I always felt like I had to go out and get everything I desired. And then as I lived here and I would go through the cycles of I'm getting there, I'm getting there, and then I get my ass knocked the fuck down. After you get knocked down a few times, you start to realize, do I really want what I keep going so fucking hard for? And where's this want coming from? Is this coming from the ego? Is this coming because this is purpose? This is divine? Is this coming out of fear? Like, where is this shit coming from, right? And so from that, I finally realized that a lot of this shit was an illusion. And also what I wanted was a fucking illusion. And that didn't sit well with me. So for the last few years, I've been really sitting with myself, and I realized, like, and I don't know how many other people feel the same way. There was things that I only wanted because I was told that was going to make me successful. I was told that if I worked a little harder as a Black woman, I have to work 10 times harder to receive what anybody else gets. So guess what? Latanya took the 10 times and add two, or times two. So it was 20. I was going 20 times over to fulfill things that when I got it, I was like, yeah, this doesn't give me any fucking fulfillment. Or they lied. Somebody lied, because this is not what success looks like. And I realized that my success was being defined off of what other people told me what success was. And my success was tied into what the world sees as success. And that's a title, that's monetary gain, that's a status. All of those are fucking external, boo. And I would realize that when I would get to something that was so fucking outside of me, it still didn't bring me a sense of peace. It still didn't bring me joy. It still didn't bring me the sense of stability that my soul was seeking. And like, that's what I'm trying to say is, like, I kept ignoring that, and I would find a new list of what somebody would tell me would make me feel fulfilled as a human, and it would not. And I really sat with myself, and it's been a very lonely ass season. I feel like a lot of people going through that too, where it's like, babe, you wanted that job, now you don't give a fuck about that job. You wanted the cribs and the cars, now you don't genuinely give a fuck about that, because you know what is tied to that. And a lot of it is chaos. And so when we had the government shutdown, and it was like September, like the last week of September, and I knew they were going to cut stamps. I can already kind of see how they were going about it. And I was seeing how our money was being funneled into so many other fucking things that I don't really resonate with. But because I'm operating in the system like everyone else is, and I'm doing the things, and I'm not doing anything to deter that, I'm not living within my own purpose. Now I'm starting to resent the motherfucking world. Like, I'm genuine, and I don't know how many other of y'all feel like that. You just starting to resent it, because it's like you try to have faith in, like, I would just say, like, a spiritual practice here. I'm really trying to stray away from religion, because religion, like I was telling a friend, we are not in a religious psychosis. We are in a spiritual psychosis. And I did touch on this, like, in my stories on IG, where I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and he kept saying, like, we're in a religious psychosis. We're in a religious psychosis. And I was like, no, babe, I love to make sure I properly define things, because that's the problem in this world, is we are mislabeling every fucking thing. We are mislabeling everything to make ourselves feel good with the projection that we're all experiencing. But that shit don't work. We need truth. We need to sit with what is. We need to be uncomfortable with what is already currently actively taking place right now. We have to be uncomfortable. If you can sit comfortably and be like, oh my God, I'm living my life like it's golden, then babe, you're a part of the problem. You're the NPC. Let's get into it. You're feeding the fucking illusion. Let's get into it. So during that time, I remember I didn't really sweat, because I realized, like, I noticed my spirit wasn't bothered in the way that my survival mode was enacted. Like, I genuinely did not feel like a survival mode nervousness. I felt a nervousness for the world, because I genuinely realized that right now we are not equipped to move and operate in community. And in this space that we're in, we are being pushed to do that. And it seems like we're all suppressing that need and letting survival mode, like, win genuinely. And that sucks sometimes, because it's like, I'd be like, y'all, it's not. It's so fucking easy to knock on that door and say, this is what I need. But that brings me to my next point with the gaslighting and the illusion. There was a lady who did a social experiment or she's from Kentucky. She did a social experiment where she called several churches, which I noticed that I kind of like that she didn't do just a sample size of, like, just like in her area. She did different states. And then as time went on, she started to collect information from people. Would be like, hey, call this church, call my church, to do the social experiment. And so what she would do is she would call these churches, and she would tell them that she needs help. Just formula. She didn't ask for gas money. She didn't ask for cash. She just asked for formula for her baby, because that's all she wanted to do. Mind you, this lady does not have a baby or anything. This was just a social experiment. Okay. I like to give context so we're not overreacting to the wrong parts. So she does this experiment, And as she does this experiment, she basically gets rejection from more than enough churches. And the way that they rejected her was through deceit, lies, questioning, just all things like what is there whenever someone tries to gaslighting her about the scenario or forwarding the issue, like get somebody else to do it. It was a lot of get somebody else to do it. And out of all of this, a few people that actually did help, or a few communities that did help, were from the Islam community. And that was like, it warmed my heart because I knew from my own personal experience when I moved to Florida, that's kind of the vibes. And as a girl who used to go to church, like when I was a child, I went based off of my parents, right? Like where they wanted us to go. And honey, I faced adversity at every place that they took us because I would see the scam. Let's just call it. I would see the scam. I would see the people that were not being who they say that they are, or the people who they project this is how you should be, but clearly they don't walk it. And I was irritated by that. And I remember, like, as I was growing closer to God, I also was like, you know what? When two or more are gathered, because it's in the word, when two or more are gathered, that's where God resides. Like, that's where his presence resides. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to get into that word, right? I'm going to say this for anybody, regardless of what spiritual practice you decide to pick up, know it for yourself. This is something I can tell you because I have practiced many religions. And I say practice because I actually take on the practices, beliefs, and the ways that you're supposed to move within that community. So when I was a Christian, right, that means that if someone's in need of help, you help them. I don't sit back and see how this is going to benefit me. I don't sit back and see, well, I remember when I had to get pulled myself up by the bootstrap. None of that shit goes through my mind. I know that if I have it on my heart to give it and I'm moving with the right heart posture, do it. I don't need to be coached in to do it. I don't need a camera out to do any of the work. And that also is what bothers me too, because I'm just like, why the fuck do we need cameras to heal each other? We don't need cameras to do that. And if you honestly need a camera to set up, do y'all know how many times I will feed the homeless and I don't need a video to show y'all that I'm doing it? Because honestly, I'm not there to feed y'all's fucking content. I'm there to feed them people. Let's get into it. I'm going to say the things that need to be said. So I was very fucking disturbed whenever I seen, but it was like one of those, I knew the answer before I even seen the rest of the experiment. So she's calling, people are giving her hell. And then she finally does get where someone wants to help her. And it's at the masjid. And when I watched that, it kind of it did two things at the same time. For one, it opened that church hurt because I have to be honest. It opened that church hurt because I had seen pastors or organizations maneuver like that in the past, but I also do remember growing up and needing assistance. And my mom used to be able to go to a church, local church, to be able to get electric paid, get a sense of food, or pay some emergency rental assistance. They might not be able to do it all the time, and they might have a little system, but like a waiting list and things like that. But the thing is, they offered help. And so let's fast forward to Latanya moves to Florida. I moved to Florida and I automatically need help, right? Everything that I set up to do fell through. This is a story. Y'all know the story. We're not going to get back into it. Basically, I need help. And I go to church. I basically go to all the community organizations first because at that time I was not Christian. I was Muslim. And so I was like, I don't really want to go to the church because I know that could be a really bad thing. But at this point, I'm pregnant. I have two little ones. I think Anaya was the oldest at that time. She was 2. She's 2, so that means the other one's 1, and I'm pregnant. We need help. We go to church. They don't help us. We go to the community organizations. They pass us on to the church, and vice versa. The community service places will pass you on to the church, and the church will pass you right back on to them, right? I'm going to be honest, the place that helped Latanya actually even get on her feet was the AMCC Masjid in Longwood, Florida. They were the ones that gave me a shower. Those were the ones that gave me furniture whenever they finally helped me get into a place, which they helped me get into the place. And so whenever that experiment came out, it was really more confirmation to me because I already went through that. It was a lived experience for Latanya. This was something I had to wake up and do. And so it does not feel comfortable for someone. Like, I'm glad that she didn't have to go through this as an experience. Like, she genuinely needed formula and that was her life experience. But for those people, you have to realize This was a social experiment for her. There's a lot of people out here who need help. And so whenever I seen the government shut down, I already knew where we were going. Spiritual warfare. You're attacking them psychologically. You're enacting survival mode. You're putting fear into their heart. You're putting lack back in there at the forefront of their fucking mind. They can't think about anything else. They can't think about their children. They can't and this is a cycle that they love to put us on. It's a psychological warfare first that affects the spiritual. Because what's internal eventually is external. It's a projection. And so in the midst of that, I know y'all don't listen. I don't want to scare y'all, but I got to scare y'all. There was when I noticed things were about to go astray, that I was asking God, I was like, bruh, you need to give me the word. And I always go to the book for prayers, especially if it's going to be something where it's like, it's not just about my household. This is about like universal. And like, I genuinely be putting my prayers out there for the universe, bro. Because I be like, baby, we need collective healing, because even if you heal me, honey, there's still a lot more adversity going outside my door. So let's not do that. I don't know how many of y'all have heard of the book of Lamentations. I now just happened upon it this year. Give me a second. Let me find it. There she is. Me and her became real close. It's the book right before Ezekiel, and it's only 5 chapters within it. Or it's 5 chapters within the series, and it's the last one. So normally I like to go to Psalms for my prayers. And for y'all know. Anyways, I asked for prayer for restoration because I genuinely feel like we need to be restored on a collective unit. And this prayer popped out, right? And I'm going to read this. And even if you are not spiritual, even if you do not believe in the Bible, just listen to how like this plays out and tell me it's not what we're going through. And when I read this with my sister, I told her to replace bread. Anytime I mention bread, replace that with money, for one. And then I'm going to take it a step further, because I realize comprehension is so necessary when you're reading anything. And also, we might read this one way and it's going to change later on. But when they reference aliens, I don't need you to think about someone that is not from this country, babe, because none of us are. Let's start there. None of us are. And as few of us might be, but the stories is so much motherfucking hidden that, baby, let's not fight about that. So anyways, prayer restoration. This is Lamentations 5, starting at verse 1. Remember, O Lord, what has come upon us, and look, behold our reproach. Our inheritance has been turned over to aliens, and our houses to foreigners. Neither one of these are talking about illegal immigrants in America. Hope y'all know that. We have become orphans and waifs. Our mothers are like widows. We pay for the water we drink, and our wood comes at a price. Aren't those things supposed to? Okay. They pursue us at our hills, and we labor and have no rest. We have given our hand to the Egyptians and the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread, aka money. Meaning, we like to look at other areas or other communities, other countries as wealthy, or we look at someone else as having more than us, and we are willing to pay, like literally sacrifice ourselves for a promise that they give you. This ain't even a promise that is set in stone. This is just a promise that they give you, right? For bullshit. You're trading your wealth for false wealth. This is basically what I get out of that. So our fathers sinned and are no more, but we bear their iniquities. And when they say that, it's basically saying if you think about our father's sins is looked at as generational curses. I realize our generation, or the newer generations, we love a good word. We love words. When people talk about generational curses, they are referencing paying for ancestral line of sin. And what I mean by that is, say your grandfather was an alcoholic and then he never got over that. So then your dad, he has alcoholism in him. And guess what? He never really heals from that. And he's abusive and he does the things, right? But then he shows you those ways. Innately, it's already in you because no one knew how to break that damn chain. Grandpappy didn't break that chain. Daddy didn't break that chain. And now you're here. So guess what? One of your tests is going to be on this earth. You're going to be tested with that alcoholism. And if it's not alcoholism, I like to think that things are deeply rooted and are rooted to a spirit. It's not the alcohol. It's not the weed. It's not the sex. It's the addictiveness. It's the addictive behavior that's being passed down. Catch it. So that's the generational curse. And we are bearing their iniquities, meaning I came into this earth having to battle generational curses that ain't had nothing to do with anything that I did. But I feel the weight of those. I'm having to go through that, bearing the fruit of what my father did. And not my one father, my earthly one. Let me stop. So anyway, servants rule over us. There is none to deliver us from their hand. We get our bread at the risk of our lives. Okay? Because of the sword in the wilderness. Our skin is hot as oven because of the fever of famine. They ravish the women in Zion and the maidens in the city of Judah. And when they mean by ravish, they mean, I can't, you know what I'm talking about. SA, right? Princes were hung up by their hands. And when I seen that, it honestly made me think about the news lines of I'm seeing a lot more. I mean, this is always happening. Let's not, just because it's not televised doesn't mean that it's not actually actively happening. But the rise in lynchings I'm seeing of my Black kings. Let's get into it. And elders were not respected. Young men ground at the millstones, and boys staggered under loads of wood. When I seen that, I kind of think about that as you're being put under a burden, like you feel the burden. You feel the burden, okay? The elders have ceased gathering at the gate, and the young men from their music. The joy of our heart has ceased, and our dance has turned into mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Because of their heart is faint, because of the things of our eye grow dim, because of Mount Zion, which is desolate, with foxes walking about on it. You, O Lord, remain forever, your throne from generation to generation. Why do you forever or forget us forever and forsake us for so long of a time? Turn us back to you, O Lord, and we will be restored. Renew our days as of old, unless you have utterly rejected us and are very angry with us. So let's do a little quick closing. My whole issue with the church not helping is because it woke something up in me, which is what I kind of was battling with personally. Every day I wake up and I'm doing everything that I have to do to just live, to exist. And I am somebody that I give money to the church. And I also learned because of how the church operated in the past, and I got to see that sometimes your tithes and offerings don't necessarily have to be you pouring money into a church. Your tithes and offerings can go into the community because literally the church is the community gathered. And so there's times where I might be out and about and there's a young high school student or a kid that be out and they be hungry. And like that happened to me that last week. I literally was going to go to Wednesday service, which is Bible study. And something was like, nah, like you can meet the Lord in many ways and you do not have to go congregate to do that, especially if you're not feeling called to. And so I didn't feel called to, and I stopped to go get some lunch or dinner for me and the kids, and we were going to slide to the park. And in the midst of that, there was a young boy that stopped me. Was like, "Ma'am, can I have some? Like, would you mind buying me some food, or can I have some cash for some food?" And from that moment, it reminded me, and it was like confirmation to me again. You remember when you told me that the tithes don't always have to go into a collection plate? This is what I was talking about, and you were right to think that. And so that's where my tithes and offerings went. It went to pour into my community. And I knew that that little boy was going to get a good meal that night. I knew that it was helping somebody. I knew it was healing somebody. I knew it restored the faith in somebody that, oh, okay, we got another day. And if this person loved me enough to help, there's going to be tenfold, a whole line of people willing to help me get to the next place. And he's a kid. So I genuinely believe that children do need to feel that type of way. And we were the kids at once, and we did not feel safe. So it's like when I seen that lady struggle to go get formula, it did resonate with me, but it also struck a chord in me that's like, when is some shit going to give? When are we going to stop doing things just because for the sake of doing it, just for the sake of fucking routine? When are we going to start questioning the shit that we see, you know? But I don't know. A story for another day. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Thank you for tuning in.